I absolutely hate the Mitsubishi 3000GT VR4. Those are the words I'm never going to say because I absolutely love the platform and car, but there are 5 things that I've actually come to realize over the last 2.5 to 3 years of ownership with this car that I kind of don't like about the car, and I kind of wanted to make a video about it because I did one for the Mitsubishi Eclipse and I did one for the Mitsubishi Evo, but I've never done one for the VR4. Trying out this new lens. I know it's a little bit more zoomed in, but as you guys can see, the background is very blurry, so I love it. So second of all, I do want to apologize because I haven't washed the car in around a month or so, but I do know that they're not for everyone, and some of these reasons will deter a lot of people. So if you're watching this, you're considering one, kind of pay attention to this, because if you cannot do or you don't like these things as well in a car, then this is not the car for you. I do plan on making a video on like things to watch out for when buying one, or just things to consider before buying one. But for today, we're going to talk crap on the 3S platform, even though, in my opinion, it is one of the best JDM legends of the 90s. I'm very biased because I'm huge on Mitsubishi, as you guys know. But of course, no platform is perfect, and we're going to talk about the Mitsubishi today. So the one thing that I absolutely hate about the 3000 GT is going to be the engine bay space. So as you guys know, it's a very common thing. People that don't even own these cars say like, oh, I don't want to get one because the engine bay is very crammed. So of course it's going to depend, or it's going to take a very special type of person to actually work on a 3000 GT. This is not for everybody because it is a car that you require either a very deep wallet, because you're going to be paying shops for labor intensive jobs, or you need to be mechanically inclined enough to be able to work under the hood. The 3000 GT was also offered in a front wheel drive layout, so that includes both the SL and the base model. So based off my research off the forums, what I was looking up is Mitsubishi basically designed the non-turbo 6G72 version. So correct me if I'm wrong, but it would make more sense to modify the front wheel drive design for a smaller amount of all-wheel drive vehicles over redesigning everything all over again. So spending the time and budget to mount the engine vertically, or make an inline 6, 6G or something with a twin turbo setup, would have made a lot of these more popular and competitive to its rivals, but very expensive for Mitsubishi. So I kind of get that point, but man, these things would have been killer, as you guys know, if these were an inline 6, or they just had more space in the engine bay, or they were easier to work on, right? Because to me, they look absolutely stunning. They look very exotic. So yeah, overall, I think the biggest issue with this car, or the biggest complaint that I hear, or the biggest complaint that I have personally gone through with this car over the years, is that it's hard to work on and expensive, especially if you can't do the work yourself. So to me, it's the cheapest and most underrated platform of the 90s legends. So to me, the 90s legends include cars like the Toyota Supra, the Nissan GT-R, the Mazda FD RX-7, the Nissan 300ZX, the Acura NSX, and the Mitsubishi 3000 GT. From what I've seen, especially when people start doing little group photo shoots and stuff like that, they tend to exclude this one a lot for some reason. People aren't, I just believe that people aren't really aware that this car was around, or they saw it here and there, but they never really got to experience it like the Supra and GT-R. So yeah, it makes it more accessible, but it's usually the one that's going to be the most beat down. The type of owner that owns this vehicle is going to really pay a huge influence on how the car is going to perform, act, live its life, or just run, right? But that is in the past, and I do believe that as the popularity of the 90s JDM legends rise, the more expensive these will become, and only people with heavier budgets will be able to own these. I believe we will still see a few clean examples over time, but as I've said, it takes someone special to take on a platform like this, and it also doesn't help that it barely got any media pushing it, making it less desirable than other rivals like the Supra or the GT-R. So as you guys know, the Supra and the GT-R were big on the Fast and the Furious. The Eclipse was too, and it didn't get as much hype as the other cars, but I believe the Eclipse even has more popularity over the 3000 GT, considering that the 3000 GT was actually considered a much higher end luxury luxury vehicle of its time. These were very expensive back in the day, and not everyone could afford these. Now my forecast for the future with these is, as the popularity of the 90s legends rise, only people with heavier budgets would actually be able to afford these and care for them, which will put them in, I believe, the correct hands. But we will start seeing, I believe, less of them on the street running, just because they're becoming a little bit harder to find. As you guys know, parts are very hard to find, and I just believe that these cars are just going to be collector cars at some point. And you know, it's kind of cool to see to grow with these, as I saw them kind of just depreciate in value really quickly. At one point they were really accessible for me, and I just ended up skipping it over because I wanted a DSM, but I was still able to fetch one right before the right when the pandemic started, and I got it for a really good deal. I don't know if I would be able to get one now, considering that they're going for 20 to, like, I think one just sold for over $100,000. So the clean, unmolested, low mile old ones are gonna be worth a lot of money. So if you have one, take care of it. So yeah, overall, it really bugs me that it's underrated and it's just underhyped, and it doesn't get the love it deserves, and it's really sad because this is a type of vehicle that gets attention everywhere I drive it, which makes it cooler for those that do have it, right? The only time I could think of it getting any sort of screen time in the mainstream media was in the Fast and the Furious prelude, right, to the second movie. I think Brian O'Connor actually owned one of these, and he was winning street races with it before he got the R34 GTR. But I mean, if this would have been the hero car in the second movie over the Evo, I believe it would have gotten way more hype, right? So besides that, Jackie Chan and Thunderbolt, I don't think a lot of people even know about that movie, but it's pretty sick. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. One comes out towards the end of the movie. And besides that, I think Initial D, a couple clips here and there, but besides that, I don't know. If you guys know anywhere else where the car is kind of published to the mainstream, you guys let me know in the comment section, but I think those are the only places I've actually seen it come out. Probably my personal biggest complaint about it is going to be the power to weight ratio. So it was made in 98. It made a 320 horsepower to the crank, and it weighs 3,800 pounds. That's the equivalent of a modern day V6 Charger, which is quite sad. Well, I mean, it could be sad if you're kind of comparing them, but at one point 300 horsepower was a lot for a true blue blood sports car. So to me, this is a true sports car. It's a car that actually, you know, for its time made a lot of power, but its weight was always its biggest flaw in comparison to its rivals from the 90s. I'm aware that the other cars are only a couple 100 pounds lighter, but to many it does make a difference. I do believe if you add the bigger turbos and supporting mods to wake up the 6G72, it could really make it a true contender against other vehicles on the road, especially today, considering how every economy or Camry makes over 300 horsepower. It's pretty crazy. What was once a blue blood sports car is now having issues keeping up with traffic. It's kind of sad, but it's true. Like, I drive this thing around town and I honestly just cruise it. It sounds crazy, it sounds aggressive, it sounds fast, but it's pretty much stock. I mean, it has slightly bigger injectors, it has the front mount, it has a full exhaust, but I wouldn't try to race anybody that try to pull up next to me, just because I know I'm not gonna win. So if I went bigger turbos, the 85 and all the other supporting mods, then yeah, I could see that, but I would be very scared to start breaking things, just because from my experience, especially with DSMs, the more power I made, the more things broke over time, especially with how everything is very old now. To me, this car is very refined and it's very good at what it does, which is a cruiser. The GT car is a grand touring car. It's a great freeway cruiser. Cruise it around town. It's perfect for that, how it is right now, and I kind of just love how it runs, right? So again, like I've told you guys before, part of me does want to do a full build on the 3000GT VR4. It would be very cool to see and kind of put it up against other high horsepower Supers or GTRs, just to see how it could hold up. And part of me believes that not a lot of people even tapped into its true potential of the 6G72, and that's just because, again, they weren't popular. Not many people were messing with them like they were messing with the RBs, or they were messing with the 2JZ from the Supers, right? So I believe that these cars just didn't get a lot of shelf life as far as like just modifications. There was a couple people that did it, but I do believe that I think on the stock block you can make close to like 600 horsepower without any issues, without, you know, the need for forged internals. So I'm sure once you go, you know, fully built, I'm sure you can make over 1,000 just like the other cars. So you guys let me know as far as like the performance goes for these cars, but unfortunately, yeah, it's quite heavy and it doesn't make a lot of power in stock form. And like I said, since people don't like touching them, it's just, you're not gonna make much power unless you know what you're doing, you know what you want. And it would be really cool to see a high horsepower VR4, you know. I've never been in one, but if you guys want to, you know, give me a ride in one of those, I would love to experience it, just to make the jump for myself, right? Because I feel like it'd be really, really cool if I made like 600 horsepower on this thing. Just, you know, big turbo, well, twin turbo. Actually, I don't know. Would I go? I don't know if I would go single turbo. I think I would just go with like 19T's E85 supporting mods and, you know, make like 500. I feel like it'd make it a really fun car. I feel like 500 horsepower on this car with how much it weighs would be like the perfect setup. Lack of both OEM and aftermarket support. So unfortunately, a lot of parts for this car are discontinued. You always hear me complaining about that because I built this car over the last 2.5 years and I always had issues finding specific parts, and the shops or stores that do sell parts for these cars would tend to surcharge in pricing, in my opinion, just because, you know, there's not many people offering any sort of aftermarket support for them. So based off what I saw, for example, with my Honda, I find parts in shops everywhere and everything's super cheap and accessible, but for this I have to wait long times. I have to you know, just go to the same shop that sells parts for these cars and overpay for shipping just because they know they can, and you can't get any parts anywhere else. And of course OEM parts are all discontinued, so it's hard to find. So it did get very expensive to build this car. I think this is actually the most expensive car that I've built thus far, considering that I have the Eclipse, the Evo 9, and the 3000GT. I pretty much spent close to half of what I spent on the DSM on this one, but I've owned the DSM for like around 11 years and I've only owned this one for like 3. So that just goes to show how much pricier parts can get, especially if you don't look out for deals or you don't know how much to expect to pay for specific parts. So, and I'm not even going to talk about you going to a shop and paying labor, man, because I believe to own a VR4 you need to have a decent amount of money to be able to build it. Otherwise, just stay away, get something else, get a Honda, get something cheap, because it's not for everyone. Supply and demand, it's a basic law, and I do see this happening a lot more with this car over anything else. So fortunately, there is a lot more aftermarket support for the 4G63 with the DSMs and Evos, but unfortunately, yeah, I don't see it with the 6G72. And part of me wants to 4G63 swap this 3000 GT, partially, obviously. I don't know if I could do it, just because, you know, I would be getting rid of the OEM 6G, but then that would also give me more possibilities, and I feel like it'd just be a lighter car, considering that it's a little 4-cylinder with a big turbo versus a, you know, twin turbo V6. But you guys let me know. There's just so many possibilities with this car. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing, and it's also quite annoying that Toyota actually ended up bringing back a lot of manufacturing for OEM parts for like the Toyota Supra, but Mitsubishi's over here like making crossovers, and it's just I just don't think that Mitsubishi really cares for our niche or the motorsport division, right? Because I do believe that Mitsubishi, to an extent, was a racing, like a motorsport, like sports company. Like that was their bloodline, and I believe that that's what they really cared about. But once they became a really big corporation and they kind of went public, I do believe that they just kind of started caring for, you know, numbers, financials, and stuff like that, and they kind of left, you know, it's icons in the past, and it's very unfortunate. And maybe one day, maybe one of their, I don't know, their workers see this video and, you know, they tell someone to, you know, bring this thing back. It'd be very sick to see a Mitsubishi Eclipse or an Evo or a 3000 GT come back, you know, just in modern day. I part of me believes that it will happen. Maybe one day they change CEOs or something, and he was one of us, and maybe I'm just, you know, I'm being very optimistic, but I'm sure everyone in the community says the same thing or thinks about it at least. But you know, I truly believe that this is what Mitsubishi stood for. It was just the rally, motorsport, or racing division, like true blood sports cars of the day, and that's what really brought my attention towards these over any other manufacturer. There's something about Mitsubishi that just, I don't know, I just love it. And I always get comments about this in almost every video when I open the door on this car. The very annoying door sound. So it's actually very easy to make it stop doing that. You just have to go ahead and take off the radio and disconnect one of the plugs in the back with the harness. But of course I haven't done it just because I'm super lazy, and maybe one day I will. But for now, you guys get to listen to me open my door like this. I don't know if this is just my car, you guys let me know, but the feeling of the shifter has by far been one of the worst I've ever experienced. For some reason, it's very notchy, and it's very like, it feels very heavy. Like it's really hard to get into gear. It's just, sometimes I grind my gears when I'm shifting. I replace the transmission fluid, I've checked the clutch fluid, I've checked over the shifter linkages, but I always have to force the shifter into the gears to avoid any type of misshift or grind. So for some reason, it's just every time, it's just, you guys let me know if this is an issue for you as well, but I've never liked how the shifter feels in this thing. It makes it, for one, it's very slow. I can't like quickly shift, and it feels like I'm grinding the gears every time I'm shifting, and it's very hard to find them. So I do have the 6-speed manual transmission. I know there's a 5-speed version as well, but this one just feels very, I don't like it. I don't know if there's a solution to that. If you guys know anything, you guys let me know. You guys let me know how much you guys like this lens, because I know I'm like all up in your face or your phone screen. But those are pretty much the 5 biggest defects in my opinion for the 3S platforms. Now I do plan on making a video about like the things I love about it, my review about it, what to look for when looking for one, or what to expect when owning one, just because I don't know, there's really no one pushing these cars unfortunately, and why do none of like the bigger YouTubers like get one of these? Like, bro, like you're missing out. Hopefully people start recognizing these over time, and there's more and more people that are actually willing to work on these, right? Because I think they're beautiful, I think they're worth it. Unfortunately, it's just like the red-headed stepchild of the family, and it is what it is. It makes it even more special for us owners, right? So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys have anything to say, or you know, any other things that you guys don't like about the platform, let me know in the comment section below, and expect more content with this car. Hopefully it's washed on the next one.